Hello friends and welcome to another video lecture. We've got topic A3.1 Diversity of Organisms. This is our additional higher level content. So friends, this will not be on your assessment. Guiding questions continue to be what is a species? Though we're going to talk more in this lecture about how it's difficult sometimes to define those species. And then we're going to look at patterns that are seen in the diversity of genomes that allow us to identify species. Our objectives, we're going to review that species concept and, like I said, discuss some of the limitations to that concept. Then we're going to talk about the use of dichotomous keys and DNA barcodes to identify different species. Quick review, what even is a species? It's a group of organisms with shared traits that interbreed in the wild to produce fertile offspring. Tigers are part of a species. Genus name, species name, this is part of our binomial nomenclature. Notice that tigers and lions, we talked about this in the last lecture, have the same genus, different species. They are closely related, but still in different species. Interestingly, tigers and lions can reproduce to produce hybrid offspring, but those hybrid offspring are often not fertile. And as often happens in science, we've got some limitations to our ideas. It's not as easy to categorize things as we wish it could be. One of the limitations to our idea of a species are organisms that reproduce asexually. Here we have the aphid, mosquito of the plant world and bane to rose gardeners across the planet. So aphids can reproduce asexually through this idea called parthenogenesis. I shouldn't have scribbled on top of it. Parthenogenesis, which means reproduction from an unfertilized egg. Lots of insects, some reptiles are able to do this. We don't have any examples of mammals, but maybe they exist, we just don't know about them yet. Parthenogenesis, asexual reproduction. So these organisms are not interbreeding to produce fertile offspring. Instead, they're giving birth, super cool thing about aphids, live birth. They're not laying eggs. They're giving birth to live insects that are all clones of themselves. There's no interbreeding. And yet the offspring are fertile. They're so fertile, in fact, that often they're born already pregnant. Yes, already pregnant. And again, bane of rose gardeners everywhere. So does this mean that they're not a species? Well, that's just silly. Of course, aphids are a species. They're a group of organisms that can interbreed. They can mate. They can go through sexual reproduction. They just don't always. Another example of an asexually reproducing species are the lovely duckweed. These guys float around on tops of ponds all the time. What's super cool is that each of these plants can reproduce through budding. So we can have a baby leaf here that is starting to grow some new baby leaves. They will separate from each other, and each of these new leaves, an individual organism, is a clone of the parent. So we've again got some asexual reproduction happening. Can they reproduce sexually? Yes, they can. There can be some flowers. These are, in fact, the world's smallest flowering plants. We can have flowers. There can be eggs and seeds, and yet they don't often do that because they don't have to. Easy, super easy to reproduce asexually. Does that mean they're not a species? Of course not. Lots of different, actually, species of duckweed exist around the planet. Another limitation of the idea of what a species is comes from bacteria. Bacteria are pretty cool. They can carry out this thing called horizontal gene transfer. Most of the time when we think about gene transfer, we're thinking about vertical, from parent down to offspring. But bacteria can transfer their genes horizontally from one bacteria to another, not to their offspring necessarily, but to an entirely different bacteria. So here we have this idea of conjugation, where we have this plasmid, a small chunk of circular DNA separate from the main chromosome. This plasmid can be replicated and then shared with a different bacteria, not an offspring bacteria, but just another bacteria that happens to be hanging out. This is going to occur through this structure that is used for attachment. And of course, this is a pili. Actually, pilus is singular, pili plural. So this pilus allows for this plasmid to be transferred horizontally from one bacteria to another. But what if these bacteria were different species, but now they have some shared genome? Does that make them now the same species, or a hybrid of the two species? Or were bacteria never species to begin with? Do they interbreed? Is this interbreeding? Not really. To produce fertile offspring, I mean, are they fertile? They can go through binary fission, but does that mean that they're fertile? Who even knows? Does that mean that bacteria can't be species? Ugh, limitations to our idea of what a species is. In the last video, we also talked about the difficulty of identifying when a species has diverged, evolved into separate species, when speciation actually occurs. So here we have a real-world example of speciation. So we have these seals. The population diverged again, but then, despite the accumulation of some different mutations and different adaptations, there was some interbreeding, because even though the seals were different, they weren't entirely reproductively isolated, and so they were able to continue to reproduce with each other, and then we got this super cool hybrid. So the Galapagos and the South American seals, hybrid Peruvian, and we know that this is happening because we're able to sequence the DNA, and we have this evidence, this DNA evidence, that the Peruvian is a hybrid of the Galapagos and the South American seals. But because each of the three is now pretty much reproductively isolated, we consider them different species, even though they have a super similar common ancestor and also more common ancestors, but a hybrid. Lots and lots of challenges to our ideas of what species are. But hybridization doesn't always lead to speciation. Sometimes that, we talked about this in the last video lecture, the shared trait of a chromosome number within a species might be a barrier to speciation through hybridization. For example, if we take a horse and a donkey, we're going to get a mule. Interestingly, only a female horse and a male donkey make a mule. If we had a male horse and a female donkey, then we get a hinny, which I think looks a lot like a mule, but I'm not mammalogist, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyhow, here's the thing that I didn't know: hinnies and mules. But because horses and donkeys have different diploid numbers, hinnies and mules most of the time are not going to be fertile. Horses have a diploid number of 64, and donkeys have a diploid number of 62. Half of 64 is 32, and half of 62 is 31. And if I combine an egg and a sperm from a donkey and from a horse, then the diploid number for mules and hinnies is going to be 63. We've got this random chromosome that cannot pair up with its homologous pair during meiosis to make potentially fertile eggs and sperm. Notice also we've got a lot of mismatched pairs. Our definition of a homologous chromosome pairs are chromosomes that have the same genes at the same loci, the same locations, maybe different alleles, but the same genes at the same locations. Clearly, this guy and this guy don't have the same locations. This guy doesn't even have a pair to pair up with. And so this different chromosome number between horses and donkeys leads to some limitations. Mules and hinnies not fertile, not able to produce fertile offspring because of these mismatches. So does that mean that mules and hinnies aren't species because they can't reproduce? Maybe. Maybe they're not species. Maybe they're just hybrids. But whatever a species may or may not be, we have some tools to try to figure out what species an organism belongs to. One such example of a tool is the dichotomous key. Dichotomous means cutting into, tomy, like appendectomy is cutting, and here we're cutting things into two chunks. So we're cutting things into yes or no. Is there dry skin? Yes or no. If yes, the next question that we're going to ask is there hair? Yes or no. If there's not any hair, then we must have a lizard. But what if there is hair? Well, then we need to ask our question next, are there opposable thumbs on our organism? If yes, we're going to look, is it bipedal? That means, does it walk on 2 feet? Why, yes, it does walk on 2 feet. It must be a human. Dichotomous keys can also come not necessarily in a tree form, but in our list of questions that we ask. Let's say that I wanted to figure out what even is this organism. I'm going to ask myself question number 1. Does it have jointed limbs? or no jointed limbs? Why, in fact, there are jointed limbs. We're going to go to number 2. Number 2, are there more than 5 pairs of jointed limbs? I see 1, 2, 3. No, not more than 5. There's 5 or fewer. We're going to go to number 3. Number 3, is the first pair large claws? No, not large claws. We're going to go to number 4. Number 4, do we have 3 or 4 pairs of limbs? 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pair. We have a locust. Another more technical, more expensive, but more specific way of identifying organisms is through genome sequencing. In our last video lecture, we talked about some of the goals of genome sequencing. We want to understand evolution. We want to be able to improve conservation efforts. We want to understand and be able to treat diseases better. We can also use genome sequencing to identify organisms, try to figure out what species they are in. Luckily, scientists have developed some barcodes that allow us to not have to sequence the whole entire genome, but we can focus on just a little bit that's super specific to a species and figure out what the species is from that barcode. It's not an actual barcode like we see in the grocery store or on shopping tags, but instead, and similarly, is a specific chunk of the DNA that is unique to that species. In us animals, we will often barcode, focus on a specific piece of DNA that codes for one of our cytochrome C proteins. These guys are involved in the electron transport chain within the mitochondria. Because there are some pretty super cool variations from one species to the next in these cytochrome C proteins, we're going to sequence just that chunk of the genome. So not the whole entire sequence of the whole entire DNA of the whole entire organism, but just this little bit, which saves us some time and lots of money, lots of resources. So what's super cool is that we can take our sample, we can extract the DNA. We're going to do some PCR. Remember that PCR is polymerase chain reaction. It is synthetic DNA replication. We're focusing on making copies of one specific chunk of the DNA, and then we're going to sequence just that one specific chunk, and then we can identify our species. If we're looking at just one species, we can do that. But what's amazing is that we can take a bunch of samples and we can extract all of their DNA, and we can do some DNA metabarcoding, and we can identify all of the species within perhaps a community. We do this often, especially in cities. We'll DNA barcode wastewater. So scientists, the Health and Human Services organizations will sample some wastewater of cities and then again, extract the DNA, do some PCR, and then use DNA barcoding to identify microbes, germs that are in the wastewater, because we know that when we throw up or use the restroom, lots of these germs are getting flushed into the wastewater. And this is actually how we figured out that there was polio in New York City back in 2022. Yeah, so yay, polio. We found it though. We knew that it was there. And on that note, my friends, vaccines are good. And also, let's talk about how we figured out what a species is, and that sometimes we don't even know. And then we talked about those patterns that we see in the diversity of genomes within and between species. We reviewed the species concept. We talked about those limitations. We talked about asexually reproducing organisms. We talked about organisms that can carry out horizontal gene transfer. We talked about hybridization. We also looked at dichotomous keys for identifying species. And last but not least, we talked about those super cool DNA barcodes, which are not actual barcodes, but instead are super specific pieces of DNA that we scientists have chosen to focus on for identifying different species. Great work today. See you next time.